Who knew the QR code was going to come back?
Come back. Biggest winner of COVID. That's right.
I mean, who would have predicted that? That and cauliflower. I feel like cauliflower is in pizza now.
It's everywhere.
I know. QR codes and cauliflower. Talk to me about person-to-person payment apps. You can pick your flavor of the week for one. And you mentioned security.
Yeah, I think those aren't going away, right? They're
convenient.
They're part of everyday life, right?
Yeah.
They really were invented to pay someone right? They really kind of came to be in that, maybe a babysitter, the kid that mows your lawn, you and I have lunch together, and I pick up the tab and you send me money because to replace cash for that.
Yeah.
It's super convenient, right?
Yeah.
And it's evolved in all sorts of the use cases. And so I think the thing to understand with those, if you look at other alternatives, cash being one, or like a card payment, like on a Mountain America Visa card, these types of transactions are more like cash than they are like a card, right? So just be mindful when you're sending someone money there. If you're mentally thinking about it more like cash, you're probably more right than if you're thinking about it like a card transaction. And so if you're buying something from someone on Facebook you don't know, the first instinct should be, this person, there's a good chance they're trying to scam me, right? Or if you're selling something, the first person that reaches out to you, there's a really good chance they're there to scam you. And so treat it that way because it's more like cash. And what would you do with cash if someone was trying to scam you? You would be skeptical and you'd be preventive. So there's some things you can do. If you're looking to buy something, try not to exchange money until you're face to face with them. And if they can't accept that, I've looked to purchase something and it's $100 item, and I'll send you $5 to hold it for me, and then the rest will come. There's some things you can do because I don't know if I'm being scammed or not, and how would I if it's just someone on Facebook? And I think you can use the tool it's really convenient, but just be mindful and treat it more like cash, and you'll be better prepared.
Okay, love that. Talk to me about BioCatch. What is that? Do I need to be aware of what that is?
Yeah, I think the best way to talk through this, if you look at, if we can maybe have a conversation about all the security that happens, in digital.
Yes.
From the very beginning, when a session starts, we look to see, does this look like a real human or not? Right? There's certain things that we can tell to say this is a bot trying to log in, or is this a human? Right? We don't know who the human is, but is it a human or not? And we'll try to stop that session if we don't think it's a human, or challenge it. You may have seen like a CAPTCHA or something that you've done in other places, and we'll challenge, hey, well, I'm not sure you're a human. Then it moves, once you pass that, you go into username and password. And we'll look to see if that matches. And we can talk a lot about how to keep yourself safe with username and passwords. From there, if you're logging in from a place we're not sure of, we might send you a MFA token, right? To say, okay, now let's see a code that you can prove who you are, right? And that kind of gets you through the experience. Well, the next generation beyond that is a different type of biometric. And I would frame this, during World War II, there's an interesting story that emerged when the Allied counterintelligence was, listening to, German officers, sending encrypted code, sort of a Morse code across, right? And what they found, they didn't understand early on what they were saying, but the way those German operators were engaging with the technology was a little bit unique to each of them, because we all have patterns that we use when we're touching tech.
Yeah.
And they started naming them. Hey, wait, this is so and so, and we could tell quickly who was talking, so to speak, by their biometrics. And that was really fascinating. If you fast forward that today, when you engage in technology, the way you type, the way you use a mouse, the way you hold your phone, the speed you tap, how hard you tap, how wide your finger is, all those things kind of the way you as a human interact with technology is unique to you. And so, now this type of technology inside authentication, we can pretty quickly tell, hey, I don't think that's Kristalina. Like, all of these human patterns just changed, right? And really, our challenge is making it safe and convenient for you. And this type of technology makes us more confident it's you, so it can be more convenient and safer, because if we're really skeptical it's you because some of these biometrics things have changed, we can take action and protect you after you get in.
That's incredible. I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing, kind of, honestly. And maybe a little creepy. You know how
Yes.
wide my thumb is? Come on.
Yeah, and don't think there's some database in here where it says Crystalina's thumb size is this. These are
right.
these are encrypted. There's an algorithm that's compared against, similar to a password, like that it's it's hashed, and so there's not your data sitting somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So just by Crystalina being myself, the technology that we have moving forward is going to help keep me more secure.
Yes.
That's awesome. Very, very cool. But I do want to touch on, because you touched on username and password, just real quick. We got to touch on that security because I feel like it is still really important.
For sure. In fact, when I talk to people, if I could give them one thing to make themselves more secure, it's your password management, or hygiene, I might call it, right?
Hygiene, I love that. Yeah.
And so there's some principles here. Longer passwords are always better. We've gone past of, complex was the thought first. Now it's longer. Every character you can add to a password makes you safer, right?
Okay.
The second is reusing passwords is one of the biggest challenges we have, right? Because we've got great security, but if you use the same username and password someplace else that doesn't have great security, and a bad guy gets that password, well, they know there's a good chance you're reusing it other places. And so once they get that, they'll try it all over the place to see if it works. And it's really hard if you also use your email with the same username and password. And so pretty quickly, I mentioned that those phases of security, the second phase is us sending you a code.
Yes.
Well, if they have your username and password, they've got through this second step. If they also can get into your email, now they can get that code that we might send to you. And so using different passwords for places, particularly those that are sensitive, is super important. Now that's hard because we have lots of services we use. There are password managers that can help you keep track and safely store these passwords, but not reusing passwords is the number one thing you can do to protect yourself today.
Okay. Fair
sure.
enough. I love that. You guys heard it from Kelly. Do not reuse your passwords. I love that, Kate. We've obviously touched on how we can stay more secure with our username and password. But how has banking changed in the last decade when it comes to security? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, if you look at our fraud experts will tell us common, fraud doesn't go away, it just moves, right? And so if you look at all the technology that we're putting towards what we might call unauthorized transactions, right? So this isn't me doing this money movement. I got someone compromised my ecosystem and are moving money without me knowing it. And there's a lot that we've been able to really stamp down through all this technology we've been talking about to keep that from happening. Well, now it's shifted more towards authorized, which means you got tricked. We see this more and more where someone has a great story, and it may mean that you're going to get a little money if you help me move money around, or I trick you into thinking you're talking to Mount America and you're not. Or I trick you into thinking you're going to buy something that's not really there. That's on the rise, right?
Yeah.
So those types of authorized where, yes, I said this money should move, but I was tricked to do it. That's on the rise. And it is a big challenge for us, obviously, to help members when they're the one doing the transaction under the wrong pretenses. Yeah.
Yeah. Which one thing, you talk about moving money somewhere else, right? That's a red flag.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's something for the community to watch out for.
Yeah, definitely watch out. I also think, if someone claims to be from Mountain America, particularly if they're trying to get you to panic act, that's often what happens. If you imagine someone called on the phone and said, I was from Mountain America and your account has been hacked and I need to help you quickly, right? Well, they just put you in a state of panic, right? And then the next question might be, I just need to verify some information from you. Well, they've put you in that panic for a reason. They don't want you to think, they just want you to give up information, right? So I would say if you ever get a call from Mountain America, this is what I do. If someone calls me, especially if it looks like they're trying to get me to act quickly, I'll say, that's great. Let me call you back at the number that I'm going to look up on my own. I'm not going to ask you for the callback number or the caller ID.
Right.
I'm going to go to a known trusted place and call back, right?
Yeah.
And often they'll know, okay, the cat's out the bag. They're there to trick you. So that's a very common practice. We welcome it. No one from Mountain America. If it's really us and you say, I'm going to call you back, we're going to say, that's great. Please do. So it's a great practice to try to get from being tricked. Also, if it's too good to be true, if someone is promising you something, be really wary. If there's something in it for you, we see that often. If the item for sale, wow, this is the best price in the world, it's a good chance it's a fraud. You're getting tricked. If someone's going to send you money and all they ask is you to move it on and keep some, it's too good to be true. It's fraud.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. What, we obviously looking over the last decade, things to watch out for, and we're seeing that fraudsters are on the rise. Anything in particular since we all experienced that pandemic together that you've seen? Yeah,
I think we've learned, for security, I think we've learned a little bit about, the shifting, right? Because as different channels closed, we saw the bad guys kind of shift different places, right? Mm-hmm. And so we saw quickly those can move. A lot of technology emerged and where it was accelerated during that. So as we've deployed technology, we also have to be wary of the security. So I think that all those things have accelerated through COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. And who knew the QR code was going to come back?
Biggest winner of COVID. That's right.
Amen. That for sure. No crazy. I mean, who would have predicted that? That and cauliflower. I feel like cauliflower is in pizza now.
It's everywhere.
I know. Good grief. It's insane. QR codes and cauliflower. Ease of use versus security. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think those are the two principles that we talk about almost every day.
Yeah.
Right. We understand that members need both. It's got to be convenient, easy, and it's also got to be secure. And those often are conflict, right? We can make it super safe if we just lock everything down and make it really hard for you to transact. Or we can make it really easy and less safe, and there's a balance there. And so we're often trying to balance both and launch something that's meaningful. Sometimes we have to do things slowly and carefully because ultimately we know, we can't be convenient and fail security. Security's got to be, the number one priority, and that's the way we act for security. We're not going to compromise there. But we also find, things that are tolerable for risk, that are high value. And we love when we can help members engage in those. Yeah.
Yeah. So you talked earlier about multi-layer security, or MFA, multi-factor authentication. Tell me just a little bit more for maybe people that don't know what that is. Why is that important?
Yeah. So if you're using a password, those are things right? Yeah. And so that's one factor. If I'm going to prove you are who you say you are, I'm going to send you a code that'll prove your identity another way, right? And so I can SMS it to you, I can text message it to you, I can email it to you, or even better, that you can use an authenticator app that's going to randomly create a code that can verify, right? So that's a different factor or a second way to authenticate you, because the username and password but now this code is something that you can have, right? That can prove you are who you say you are. If you think about the ability to be compromised, for sure, the authenticator is best because it's really hard to crack that. That's going to be on your phone. It'll generate a code. It's available right now within the Mountain America solution. You can choose texting, email, or an authenticator app, because the bad guys can trick you. They can trick us. They can trick Verizon into compromising your cell phone. And if they've also compromised your email, they can defeat those. It's really hard for them to defeat the authenticator app, which generates that code. So MFA, it's not going away. You're seeing it more and more everywhere because it is an increase in security, and the way the token is and code is presented can be more secure if you're using an authenticator app instead of SMS / texting or email. Okay, so use the authenticator app. Use the authenticator app. Okay, good to know. You learn something new every day, Kelly. I love that. What, from your perspective, can members of Mountain America or the public do to keep their information safe? Yeah, so privacy. I think being aware of what you're signing up for isn't really important. I think someone has said, if you're not sure what the product is or how a company makes money, you might be the product, right? As far as your personal data, and look, people should really think about what their own approach to privacy is. I talk to some people when they say, I don't really care what companies know about me. And some people have a much different opinion of, I really wanted to protect it. So once you've established what your personal approach and a need for privacy is, then make sure you're active with that. Understand what you're signing up for, understanding what information they're collecting, understanding what they might do with it. understand how they're going to protect it from other bad guys getting it. Because ultimately, data and your personal data is very valuable to a lot of third parties, and people want it. And protecting it, should be at least on your mind.
Yeah. And from your perspective, why is our data so valuable? Obviously, username and password, right? So that you can get in and take all my money. But what else about my data makes it so valuable?
Well, I think there are a lot of different ways to monetize, what you do behaviorally, how you spend. That your spending behavior is relatively valuable, right? Especially if people want to ask you to buy more stuff. Understanding what your spending patterns are can be super valuable. You mentioned it could be used to compromise you, which I think is one of the primary reasons people want it, but also ultimately to advertise more personalized items to you. People want that information.
Yeah, makes sense. Talk to me about how I can be more secure with notifications and alerts.
Yeah, Mountain America Alerts, that's probably my favorite product.
Okay.
I do, because I think it does two things for you, right? I think we all are trying to be a little bit more financially well.
Yes.
So
hopefully we all are.
At different stages, probably we all at least want to, maybe at the end of the year and a few times a year. But this new digital world we have, it almost seems like we're transacting with fake money, right? I can pull up the Amazon app, and within a few seconds, I've spent money and something's coming today or tomorrow, right? It's just happening so fast to the point where it almost doesn't seem real. And so I love alerts because when I make a transaction, it's an additional confirmation that it gets sent to me to say, hey, Kelly, you just spent money. This was real, right? And so it helps me with keeping my financial picture around. I can log in every day and look at my balance. You can also have it fed to me every day to remind me how much money and what my spending's doing in a moment or on the whole, day by day, right?
Yeah. On
the second side is security, because time is always valuable when something is happening that you didn't authorize. And so if you get an alert the minute a card is authorized, the minute someone's logged into online banking and it's not you, that provides security. You can be alerted when these things happen. And so alerts are amazing because it does both things. It helps you with your financial wellness and it helps you with your security.
Okay. Financial well. I love that idea. No longer do we have the wallet full of cash, and when it's gone, right? We just can transact whenever. So getting that reminder daily.
It was really physical back then. You saw the cash leaving your hand, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that doesn't happen anymore. Like, it's just these, the money's just gone, and it's not even in your conscious sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. So bringing that back to conscious through those alerts. I love that idea. Very, very cool. Talk to me about travel notifications and why they're important, and the fact that I can do those in the app, right? Yeah,
that's great. I think, there's a lot of complex data to try to understand if the card transactions you're using are you. It's really complicated. And when you travel outside of places you normally are, we may inadvertently say no, because you've never been using your card over here. And you've never made this type of purchase. I'm not sure this is you, and we may stop that transaction. But if you can tell us in the app super conveniently where you're headed, that'll make sure your card's working in the places you need it to work.
Okay. And so I can just go within the app and say, during these dates, I'm going to be in Nashville, Tennessee. I don't know why that city came to mind, but you
could go there. Yeah.
Yeah, I could. Yeah.
A few seconds, you can put that right in the app.
Okay. Awesome. So Kelly, when it comes to security, one thing within apps that we're all seeing, right? When I get that update on my phone, do I just scroll really fast through all of the things and hit accept and move on with my day? Or from your standpoint, do I read them?
Yeah. So I think first, understand what data you're likely to put in the app, right? Because if it's trivial, then, it's not as big of a deal on the terms of service. But if it's something that's going to have some data that is important to you and your privacy, then certainly understand the terms and conditions. Take the time to read and understand them. There are examples out there, free email for one, right? Well, where potentially they're reading your emails for some purpose, right? And you need to be aware of that. And if you accept that, that's okay. That's the value you're getting for the email. But at least you need to be informed, and that should be in the terms and conditions, where you understand what they're going to do with the data that they're getting from you, and what they can and cannot do with that data.
Yeah. So you would encourage everyone to read terms and conditions.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a big ask, right? Because those are long.
Those are long and very legal jargon heavy.
Particularly around apps or services that have sensitive information. Take the time to read and understand what you're signing up for and what your day is going to be used for. It's worth the time to do it.
And how would you define sensitive information? Obviously, your money for sure makes sense. Read terms and conditions there. What else comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I think it's going to vary by person.
Yeah.
Right? Some information's sensitive to some and not to others. For me, my family is super important to me, and I don't want to do something on their behalf that has their identity exposed. And so I'm going to be mindful about that. I know where I live is important to me. As far as sensitive, how my transactions, what I do, that's information I don't care to share. So I think if it looks at your behavior, the way you're spending money, your health information is sensitive. Your contact information, all of that, I would say is relatively sensitive.
Yeah, that's fair. And then if I'm sharing that sensitive information via my free email account, then it's not necessarily that secure.
Potentially, yes.
Okay. Fair enough. Awesome. So security overall, I just want to review really quick, Kelly, what I've learned from you. Passwords, make them long. And make sure they're different. Don't reuse passwords, right?
Yep. Check.
Multi-factor authentication, very important. When I have the opportunity, use the multi-authenticator app.
Yes.
Not via text or email.
Yes.
Getting that through. Okay. And then when given the opportunity, read terms and conditions for sensitive information.
You got it.
Okay. What else did I miss?
I'll be mindful of and aware of fraudsters that are out to trick you.
Okay.
I'd say be skeptical of any interaction you have. Now, if it relates to money being moved from you,
okay,
just be skeptical. Yeah.
Okay, and treat those person-to-person payment apps as cash.
As cash, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Kelly, thank you for joining us and helping us learn how to stay safe, how to stay secure, but then at the same time, why we need to be mindful of apps. Right? And what they can provide for us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you all for joining us as well. And we will see you on the next episode of Guiding You Forward.